Video is becoming more and more important. And so what if you know you need video, but you don't really feel comfortable in front of a video? I was there too. And it only takes a couple of months, maybe 6 months at the outset, to get really good at being on video. Now, I went through these struggles. I hired various public speaking coaches, and the more that I worked on it, actually the worse that I got. Yeah, and now I'm here to tell you about how to get good on video. No, actually what happened is the more that I thought about don't say and, don't say but, don't say don't say so, my governor brain was going crazy and I was getting more and more rigid and more tight. Have you ever had that feeling? And so then I joined this other group where we figured out how to get into the flow. And it was based on games and based on getting our natural mojo, our natural feel out. And so I went from being super awkward on video to talking to you today about how to have video presence and how to get good at it, even if you're super nervous and just don't want to do it and feel awkward and don't like the sound of your voice. I was there, right there with you. Why do I know that you can do it? I know that you can do it because you've been speaking since you were 1 or 2 years old. And I know that when you're with your friends and you're having a nice meal and you're maybe having some drinks or not, or you're chatting over lunch, I know that you just flow and you talk and you're natural and you're very interesting to listen to. So let's bring that out with a few of these tools here and have that be your online presence as well. And I will talk about how to fit this into a business context, of course. We don't want kind of the backyard, beer drinking, various shenanigans in business. So we want to bring that flow in and use it for business. I'm going to cover 6 things. How to talk to the video like your friend, how to get into the flow and stay there, the importance of stories, and then in the second half, I'm going to cover more of the dials in your brain, how to increase your speed and decrease your speed, how to increase your intensity and take your intensity down, and how to use the bow and arrow of storytellings to stay on track and still bring in other useful thoughts right at the moment. So let's jump right in. How do I talk to this video as it's my friend? Well, I mean, it kind of is my friend. It helps me reach you, right? So it's a friend of a friend. But the main thing is not to get too abstract. If I start talking about all of the important theories behind public speaking, yeah, you're turning that video off. And so what I want to do is I want to jump into a story and I want to talk to you like a friend. And I want to share some of my vulnerability, some of my struggles so that you can identify with me. So we're actually building intimacy, which is the point of video. So the first point is talk as you would to a friend. And often when we're talking to friends, we're not in the abstract, or if we are, we're not really connecting with them. So get in the present moment, tell your stories as much as you can as your present experience of those stories, and share them as you would with a friend. So that brings us to number 2, which is that governor brain I was talking about, that part of my brain that when I'm talking, it's saying, oh, you're saying like too much, you're saying so, oh God, there was another count the ums, do a buzzer every time there's an and or an and that takes us out of the flow. And if you think about when you're hanging out with your friends, you're just talking, you're out to lunch, you're totally in the flow. They say something, you share something, you ask some questions, completely in the flow. And the flow does something more than just makes us natural. It activates our Google autocomplete. There is an autocomplete in our brain. We know so much more. We have access to so much more than what we've written on paper. And so if we can play some games to get that activated and stay in the flow, then the words will come. You just don't even have to worry about it. And so instead of memorizing a script, have a general outline and then trust your Google autocomplete. That will keep you on the flow side of your brain and away from the governor side of your brain. The governor side of the brain is, what should I say next? Oh, I just missed that. Oh, I forgot this in the outline. We want to stay out of that and over in the flow of being at lunch with some friends and trusting that our brain will make sense and our brain will give us the words that we need. And that brings us to my third point. If you're hanging out with friends and relaxed, a natural thing to do is to tell a story. Now, an example of a story is instead of saying, well, I was on this camping trip and all these things happened, and that's taking us into the past. The thing you want to do is really be in the present. You can say, I was on this camping trip and I'm there. I'm on the rock, and all of a sudden I look and there's a bear and I don't know if I should run or I shouldn't run, right? And now we're captivated. It's not the general principles of camping and the best way to camp and all this kind of stuff. How do we bring that into business? We bring it in through customer experience, customer testimonial, sharing an experience you had with a customer and sharing how you felt about that and the incredible triumph you had. So those stories can be true for business. They don't need to just be, thankfully, about a bear chasing me on a camping trip. So if you're enjoying this so far, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to my channel and follow me on social media. And I also have a great email list. We're going to talk about really some nitty-gritty how-tos, how to get those dials working in your brain. And there's a great software that I use that's online called Ultraspeaking, and it's taking the ultra learning, the fast learning principles and applying it to public speaking. And that's how I learned how to do what I do. And so the first skill that you need is to be able to speed up and slow down. You'll notice that a lot of videos where the person's talking really slow, pausing a lot, you'll just go on to another video. And so it's really a great skill to have, to be able to speed up, get some excitement in your voice, and slow down for those key points, but not talk slow all the time. So a great way to do this is to just do rapid fire analogies that make no sense at all. So it's not even like you're thinking. Now, why is that? Why would I do analogies that make no sense? We want to make sense. We want to sound smart. There's two reasons that you do analogies that make no sense. One is you learn to trust your audience, that they are meaning-making machines. So even if you say something that doesn't quite make sense, your audience will kind of fill in the blanks, which is super cool. And the second is to get over any kind of shame or feeling like you have to sound smart. Life is like popsicles because they're delicious, any kind of thing like that. So you start going really fast and you go through these things. Love is like a butt because they're all different size, and you just quickly go through them. And there's great exercises on Ultraspeaking, or you can just make up a couple of cards, and you want to make them things that don't really relate to each other, and then you just say them very quickly. So you do 3-second reps or 4-second reps or 5-second reps. You can put a timer on your computer, and then you can come up with these weird analogies that don't fit and then fill them out the way that I just did. Make sense? So that is a way, get that Google autocomplete working for you. You know it's there. Even if you have the most ridiculous two things that don't fit together, it'll still fill it in and make sense for you. And so you know that that's there. You know that tool is there. It's working. It's there to support you. Number 2, intensity. If I spoke to you in this entire video in a complete monotone, you would get off the video. So you need to come up and down with intensity. One of the tricks is to really expand your range. Now, this is not that you want to listen to a video where I'm whispering and then I'm yelling and I'm so excited and then I'm whispering again. You don't want to do that. That's kind of obviously not genuine, not authentic, and we're here to connect. We're here to build intimacy. So you want to be authentic, but anytime that you're under more pressure, your range is going to shrink. So if your range is, say, a 3 to a 5 or a 3 to a 6, or maybe you're higher energy like me and your natural range is kind of a 5 to a 7, then when you start speaking in front of a video or in public, your range is going to narrow. So now your range is going to be so narrow, you're going to sound monotonous, right? So what you want to do is practice that, whisper to the video, and then get excited like I showed you to the video. Really expand your range, stretch your range so that then in the video, maybe your total range will be 4 to 7 like I'm doing here, right? It sounds more interesting, it's more genuine, and it's truly who you would be if you're hanging out with your friends. Some of you may say to me, you know, Emmy, I'm never at the 10 even with my friends. And yes, that's true. Some people like to be at the low end of the range. Some like me like to be at the high end of the range. It's still great to practice that whole range, stretch your horizons, and you may actually find a new interesting person arrives in that 10. Could be exciting. The final point is the bow and arrow. We can only really remember one point from a video. Your audience is going to remember one thing. What is that one thing? The one thing from this video is that you've got what it takes. You already know you're a natural speaker. That's my arrow. My arrow is what is your one thing. So what's the bow? The bow is all of these things that add to that one thing. Talking to me, telling stories, finding your flow, increasing, decreasing speed, increasing, decreasing intensity. These are all things that add up to you being a natural person, being a natural speaker. These are all things that add up to you being the natural speaker that you already are. And so the bow and arrow is that I have one thing that I'm going to say, and I'm going to trust my Google autocomplete that when these thoughts come into my head of things to add, they're not going to distract me. They're not going to take me into my governor brain and freeze me up. They're going to be things that I can kind of bring into the fold to make it a little bit more of an interesting, lively, and authentic talk. So what's your bow and arrow? Your arrow is the one thing that you want to communicate, and your bow is all of those things that you're going to bring together. The challenge is not to get off track. And so there's some great games, again, on Ultraspeaking that I use, but you can use this just on your own with video, with cards. You can make some cards that have some distracting different subjects like a banana or anything like that. And you can bring it in. You say, well, you know, business and e-commerce is like peeling a banana, right? So you can learn to bring those things in. And so how you practice bow and arrow is just a few different unrelated thoughts, and then you pick the arrow of what you're going to talk about and you try to incorporate those. Later, your Google autocomplete may bring in some great ideas as you're speaking, and you just incorporate them the same way. The pause. The pause is critical for the speaker and the listener in public speaking, but it's a little bit tricky in video speaking because too long of a pause and you just move on to something else. So in public speaking, the pause allows me to center myself and it allows you, the audience, to soak in what you're hearing. In video speaking, the audience can just pause the video and let things sink in. And so in video speaking, less pausing is better. It's better to just keep moving on. And so that's why I did not include pausing in my 6 tips. Now we've reached the end of the video. I'd love to know from you what you're going to take away from this. Are you going to be able to use your Google autocomplete, practice some of those games, tell a story, talk to the video like it's your friend, increase, decrease your speed, increase, decrease your intensity, and use the bow and arrow to tell one story? What is most meaningful for you? And do you feel like this will give you the confidence to speak on video? I would love to know. What I know is that we all know how to talk. We all know how to be natural, how to be authentic, and we can use this in our personal life, and we can use this in business, and we can use this on video. I know you can do it. I hope you like this video. Hit subscribe if you want to see more, and check out my other videos. To join the best conversations on your health, you can find me in these channels on social media.